Joining me, Tom Fitton, the president of Judicial Watch, former federal prosecutor, and author Sidney Powell. Thank you both for being with us. And Sidney, let's begin with you. What now should the president and all of his supporters, and most importantly, those who are on the president's legal team, be considering right now to defend against what is an absolute dagger at the heart of the Trump administration?
Well, you're right, Lou. It is an unprecedented assault on this president, and the Democrats should be very leery of what they've started here. It's going to backfire on them in more ways than one, and things have a way of going around that come around that go around.
I understand that, but what should the president and his administration be doing right now? Because the Dems have put it right in their faces and said what they're going to do and how they're going to go about it.
They need to be looking at motions to quash all the subpoenas and fighting them every way they possibly can. And anyone who testified before Congress previously or before Mueller should not be testifying in front of them again.
Tom Fitton, your thoughts?
Yeah, the easiest answer is just say no. These are redundant requests. The documents are around elsewhere that Congress can get if they desperately need them. But this is just a remarkable development in terms of abuse of power. Recall, this is all part of the piece. You had Obama use the IRS to target his opposition in 2012. Then they used DOJ, FBI, CIA, etc. to target President Trump or then candidate Trump. They continued the targeting through and the abuse through the Mueller operation, and now the abuse is being continued. The coup is being continued through this abusive use of congressional power to harass the president and all of his people. A lot of these people can't afford lawyers. Even to say yes will cost them tens of thousands of dollars. To say no, Tom, could break them.
Break them how?
Financially.
The Republican Party should be making certain that there will be, this is nothing but a political persecution. It's not even an investigation. This is purely and straightforwardly an assault. Why isn't the Republican Party right now raising money, making certain that every single person involved is not financially, the hell with ruined, inconvenienced even?
Well, that will be just another accusation by the left of collusion and conspiracy. I mean,
what are they to do?
You've got to say no.
Are they to sit there and watch them go broke?
Well, that's what's happened previously, Lou.
Well, that's shame on the Republican Party. Shame on the so-called donor class. This is pure ignorance.
And they could certainly start a legal defense fund on behalf of everybody that's involved in it.
That's right. Well, you know, and Nadler admitted he had nothing to go on. I mean, to say you have no facts or evidence of a crime warranting impeachment and then to launch an investigation anyway is the exact reverse order the way our system is supposed to work. It's a remarkable abuse of power.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that the witch hunt had it in reverse order? I mean, it's just been a search for a crime. They're following the lead of Robert Mueller. And the radical dim corruption of both the FBI and the Department of Justice.
It's rare you get an admission that they're doing it.
And remember, Mueller was authorized to investigate any crime he came across in the process of investigating whatever the heck it was he was authorized to investigate to begin with, which included obstruction of justice and this whole collusion mess, which they made up. So there wasn't anything he couldn't have prosecuted if he found evidence of it. So there is no evidence of anything. The entire
Jerry
thing
Nadler
is an outrageous abusive process.
Jerry Nadler stipulated that. Let's listen, if you would please, and share this with the audience. Nadler, on the investigation, if you would listen, as he is perfectly willing to set aside, it's a full screen that we want to put up as he described how he's just going to toss aside any concern about the witch hunt, the special counsel investigation, which has wasted $25 million and almost 2 years of America's time. Congress must provide a check on abuses of power. Equally, we must protect and respect the work of Special Counsel Mueller, but we cannot rely on others to do the investigative work for us. Have you ever seen a more... What's your thought about that, Tom?
Well, it shows you that Mueller's come up dry, and it's not just 2 years, it's 3 years, because the DOJ and the FBI began and harassed.
I was talking about the special counsel investigation.
Right, but the investigation generally has been going on for at least 3 years. They've been unable to do anything, and so now one of the worst aspects of what we learned this week is the confirmation that Congress or the House Democrats are going to seek to abuse the law to get the president's private tax returns. So not only will they be abusing these individual citizens using the power of Congress, they're going to try to bring in the IRS to abuse President Trump as well.
And Sidney, you first. What are the Republicans in Congress doing? What is the Senate doing? Why isn't there a response from the Republican Party and their representatives, whether it be in the Senate or the House?
Lou, we need to vote out absolutely every rhino.
Whoa. I don't want to talk about 2020. I really don't. I want to talk about what these lazy, indolent, passive son-of-a-guns can do to respond to what is a clear declaration of war on the part of the radical Dems against the president and the American Republic.
Well, the Senate, where we have control, could start investigations of their own of the culprits in Congress that are responsible for this.
Tom?
But, you know, they're not doing anything.
Well, you know, it was announced today that Nadler coordinated with the Mueller operation and the Southern District of New York, which is being run by deep staters, on this investigation. So the collusion continues. And Senator Lindsey Graham, he's got to take ownership of this and proceed to investigate the Justice Department and the FBI corruption.
Does he have the
Trump
stomach
targeting.
and the spine for it?
Well, you know, the American people need to give it to him. And that means your viewers need to let their senators know what they think about the corruption going on at the DOJ and the FBI and the assault on our Republican form of government by the Justice Department and the FBI, now with the connivance of the Democrats in the House.
Tom Fitton and Sidney Powell, thank you both for being with us. Appreciate it.